Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Friday at 4. I hope everybody had a very nice, safe, and happy Thanksgiving Day uh, weekend or holiday. And we're glad to be back. And with me, as always, is Amanda Van Deerheiden. Amanda, how are you? We haven't spoke since before the holiday. I hope everything was happy and well, and you had a lot to give thanks for.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Yes, we have been MIA for a few weeks, celebrating with our families and wrapping up end of the year stuff. I'm sure you have been as well. So we're excited to be back, and we have a few more episodes left until the end of the year.
Yes, we do, and we are excited. Thank you for some of the emails asking when we were going to be posting again. It's very nice to hear that we've made an impression on a few people. Hopefully, we can continue to grow that. So today, we wanted to get into something that both Amanda and I call simple. Just some simple things that because of our busy lives and our busy professional careers that we're going through, that we might forget to either do or overlook while we're doing it. Specifically, kind of talking about the resume. It's the end of the year. You start thinking about where you might want to be in Q1 or Q2 or the first part of next year. So you dust off the old resume and you start writing some notes about what you've done this year and how your positions have changed. But a couple of things that I've seen over the course of my career, but I see it quite a bit lately, and I just think that people are busy. Number one, um, don't forget to put your name. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but you'd be surprised how people do forget that. Number two, don't forget your email address and make sure your email address is correct. Because a lot of times when you are submitting and you're going into a client or candidate management system, they are going to be sending out these automated updates to you to the email that they parse from the resume. So if your email is something at gmail.com, make sure it says Gmail, not Ymail, which I've seen quite a few times. The third thing that I think is important is your phone number. Make sure your phone number is correct because recruiters have limited amount of time. And if your email isn't working and it bounces back and they try to call you, hopefully your phone number is correct. So make sure that little tidbit, double check those things. And then before I turn it over to Amanda, the final thing I would say from my part, if you have designations, if you are a JD, if you have a CPA, if you have an MBA, put it on the resume. Don't assume that people are going to know that based on your experience, because when recruiters are checking, a lot of times they are looking for those keywords. And if you leave it off, you may be overlooked and you may miss out on a good position. Amanda, I know that was a lot, but I've had that on my chest for a little bit now.
Absolutely. So I'm going to recap and expand. So the four things that Jim just talked about are: make sure to include your name, which also I will add, make sure your name is on every page. If people are printing out your resume, if it's only on the first top of the first page, the pages get separate. They don't know they don't know who the second page belongs to. So you want to make sure that that's a header. So that's one point with the name. The next thing was the email address. Make sure it's a correct email address, but make sure it is an active email address that you are checking. We also like to talk about, make sure your email address that you have listed is professional. I love, Jim always says this and says, make sure that you're not Amanda Vanderheiden 5 at Gmail. You're the Amanda Vanderheiden at Gmail. So if your name is already taken, maybe you want to do initials, but don't have a bunch of letters or words that are not work appropriate. Next up, he mentioned phone number. It might not be a good idea to include your work phone number. I mean, you might have been at a company for 20 years, but the fact that you're sending out a resume means you might not be there when the recruiter gets to your resume a month 2 months later, but they still want to contact you. So make sure it is a phone number that you are going to answer professionally and that is active. Finally, Jim mentioned titles and awards. One thing I want to add to is not everybody knows what the abbreviation and letters are. So make sure that it's spelled out somewhere in your resume. It might not be right after your name, but it might be at the end page where it's your education, certifications that you've accomplished, accomplishments, etc. So those are the 4 big ones, which seem simple, but there are always ways that you can make sure to fine tune name, email, phone number, and certifications. So next up, we want to transition into, those are obvious things that are needed. Some other faux pas that we've seen are, spelling errors. Make sure you send it through a spelling check. Jim, this is another good one. Jim, how many pages should someone's resume be?
Well, there is a huge debate here. If you can fit it on one page, you should. Sometimes you can't. Okay, the more senior you are, you might have to go to 2 pages. Anything after 2 pages, Amanda, is a book. And to be honest with everybody, internal recruiters, hiring managers do not have time to read 3 pages, 4 pages. That's for the interview. That's for the discussion to talk about. So again, if you can fit it on 1 page, do it. If you can't, 2 pages is the maximum that we usually recommend.
Like Jim said, it's a controversial topic. I know I've heard it. If you have less than 10 years experience, you absolutely need to keep it to a page. If you have more than 10 years experience, you can probably get away with 2 pages. So, there are conflicting ideas about it, but basically you want to make sure that you're keeping it concise and you're making sure that people can read it and understand it. So again, not a lot of abbreviations, not shorthand, not special terminology, because certain recruiters are not going to know what that means and may not understand it enough to push it to the hiring manager who would.
Yes. So one other thing that comes up, and that is, don't make people guess whether you have a degree or not. If you have a degree, put it down. You went to this university. I understand completely if somebody is not comfortable putting a graduation date on there, and that is totally your call, and nobody should ever question you on that. But if you did earn a degree, you should be proud of it and put it down. If you didn't earn a degree and you went to a college, university, or some sort of higher education, there is nothing wrong with putting down that you did go to those institutions, but you do not have a degree. Because if the position requires you to have a degree and you think that, well, just let them talk to me, let me get into process, they're going to love me, and then it'll come out that I don't have a degree. 99.9% of the time, you're not going to get the job. But if you enlighten that right away, then sometimes things can be worked out in the beginning. Not always, but again, just be truthful. If you have it, put it down. If you don't, but you did go to school for 2 years or 3 years or even a semester and you believe it's relevant, make a note of it.
Yep. So that's another controversial topic about whether or not to include dates, especially when we talk about ageism in the workplace and hiring practices. We're not going to get into that topic now, but we will be addressing that later on. So, whether or not to put dates, you don't necessarily have to put dates. You can put the amount of years you were at a location. There are ways that you can finagle that, and you can work with an expert on that. Next interesting topic is whether or not should hobbies be included in your resume.
Well, that's again, interesting. I'm starting to find more from hiring managers in different business sectors that one of the things they are interested in are topics like, did this individual maybe compete in athletics in college? Or maybe outside, that they could consider to be something that might help them in a position? Are they coachable? Do they have leadership skills? Some of those attributes that you might be able to bring to the table, you know, if you participated in college sports, college music, college theater, things like that, can be relevant to a position that you're going for. Now, if you like to build model airplanes, or you like to go to horror movies, that's not something that should be on a professional resume. Um, your status of whether you're married or not should not be on a resume. How many children you have or don't have should not be on a resume. But think of yourself as, if I want this person to really understand what made me who I am, participating in certain outside activities, whether that be theater, sports, you know, even some volunteer work, if it's worded correctly, could be relevant to a hiring manager, and it's something you could be very, very proud of as well.
Yes, exactly. You want to think about the person who's reviewing your resume. Is what you're putting on there going to be interesting to them? Is it relevant to the job? I know that I've been a hiring manager for a lot of different positions over the years, and I've seen usually younger candidates will put social media on their resumes. And if it's a role where I expect them to be fully on and present, I don't want to see social media. I don't want to think that they're going to be playing on their phones when they're supposed to be doing work. So, but in another light, if you're looking for a social media expert or somebody who's going to be managing your social media accounts, absolutely you want to make sure that they have that. So again, you always want to be reading it and thinking about it in the mindset of who's reading it and how will it apply to the job that you're applying for, that you want.
Agreed. Agreed. And look, you should be proud of what you've accomplished, right? And you want that resume to be that snapshot of who you are. And it's a starting point for you to create a conversation with either a recruiter or a hiring manager. But it also has to be professional, because we have to respect the fact that, you know, businesses have a limited amount of time for people they are interested in and want to talk to. One of the last things I want to get into is that I get questioned sometimes, more now than before, which is, I don't want my current employer to know that I might be looking. And if I put my resume out there and it says ABC company, they might know, because I know we have people that go on and we're constantly checking for our internal prospects. So what do? And I tell them, look, there is nothing wrong with putting confidential and taking out any buzzwords in your description that you feel might give it away. Nothing wrong with that in doing it. Just understand that it can look cryptic to the person or people who are viewing it, and you might have to do some explaining when it comes to that. The last thing I'm going to talk about is, if you are currently with a company and you don't feel like putting dates, as Amanda said, you can put 5 years to present. But if you're no longer with the company, or you left for any reason, don't send a resume out that says you're currently still employed. Just put when it stopped, 2019, or however you want to word it, because that does come across as a negative if the first thing that the recruiter or hiring manager asks you is, so Amanda, you are still currently with ABC company, and your first words have to be negative. No, I'm no longer there. That sets a bad tone for the rest of the call. It's much better to address that right away in the resume, and then you can speak to the issues on why what led to the departure, and then move on to what you're looking for. I hope that makes sense, Amanda.
Absolutely. And another thing to remember is some people are self-conscious. Maybe they've been out of work for a year and they don't want to show a blank, or maybe 5 years. Usually you're doing something within that time, whether it's interviewing or volunteering. There's other ways around it to minimize the gap. And we can talk about that for a whole episode. So we won't get into that right now, but we do want to wrap it up. We want to keep it short and simple today. So just to reiterate a few key points that we highlighted: make sure that your resume is professional, the details are up to date, it's concise, it spells it out, it doesn't have abbreviations that people may not understand. And don't be afraid to have someone review it and give you feedback on it. We're here to help you. We're happy to look at it and say, hey, this needs some work, or you're on the right track. So we're here to be a resource. Please ask us questions. Please reach out. We love hearing from you. I'm going to let Jim wrap it up for the day.
And Amanda, you are absolutely right. We love helping. You have a question, go to our website, www.grtas.net. That's grtas.net. You can contact us, both Amanda and myself. Our contact information is there. You can send us a note where you can schedule a call, and we're happy to go over and work with you and see if we can just help you out in any way. The whole point of the reason that Amanda and I started Friday at 4 was because we wanted to create a community where we're all helping each other out. We're all there. We understand that if I'm having an issue, I bet other people are having the same issue, and a place that people can go to ask a question. And just like in school, there are no stupid questions. Anyway, if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. That's important. It helps keep us moving forward. The same with our podcasts, which are on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio. We really appreciate when you download that. Send us whatever you can, ideas on new topics, or even on this topic if you think we forgot something. But until next time, have a great week, and we'll talk to you very soon.